Hello, Chris Nickel here, and in this video I want to introduce to you techniques for creating entire layers of solid color, shapes of solid color, and effects that you can apply to those shapes. To do so, I'm going to introduce the Paint Bucket tool, the Shapes tool, and layer styles. Let's start with the Paint Bucket tool. You will find the Paint Bucket tool over here about halfway down the Tools palette. If I click on this, you'll see that there's three tools on this one tool menu: Gradient Tool, Paint Bucket Tool, and 3D Material Drop Tool. Right now we're just going to learn the Paint Bucket Tool. We'll come back to the Gradient Tool later. The Paint Bucket Tool will fill an area of your image of consecutive or contiguous color with one solid color the entire way. This layer here is my background layer, and it's a solid white, and so if I click anywhere in this document, the Paint Bucket tool will automatically fill it with whatever my foreground color is. If I double click on my foreground color, it will bring up the color picker, which will allow me to select any color to work with the Paint Bucket tool. As you can see, since my layer is a solid color to begin with, the Paint Bucket tool will fill the entire thing from edge to edge. Now I really want to emphasize that it will only fill contiguous colors within the document. And let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go ahead and use my paintbrush here to paint a figure 8 and select a nice contrasting color like this limey green. And if I use my Paint Bucket tool to paint in that circle, you'll see since that circle is edged in by the black line, it will only fill that one area. If I click outside of the black line, again, it will fill everything except for what is not touching. It doesn't matter how narrow or broad the area is, but the Paint Bucket tool really will just focus on those colors that are consecutive within the same color range to fill. So you can see I can click on my line there and even change the color of that. I'm going to back up here and just start with a fresh blue layer so that I can go ahead and show you the Shape tool. Now the Shape tool, as you will see, is behind this icon here, and if I click on it, the menu indicates that I have a rectangle tool, a rounded rectangle tool, an ellipse tool, a polygon tool, a line tool, or a custom shape tool. The names of these tools explain what they do pretty effectively, each one describing the shape that it will create. I'm going to start with the ellipse tool. Ellipse is really just a fancy word for an oval. If you make a perfectly round oval, of course you end up with a circle. And I'm making a circle actually to demonstrate to you the difference between the Shape tool and other functions in Photoshop. Now, as has been discussed before, Photoshop creates bitmap images. In other words, images that are created out of pixels. So when I use a tool such as the brush tool, as I just have, I'm basically laying down a number of pixels that are arranged in a formation to create a circle. If I zoom close, I can see the edge of that circle as defined by a number of staggered pixels. Now, if I expand that circle to a larger and larger size, those pixels expand and you'll see that pixelated edge. Now, when I fix that expansion, Photoshop will do its best to smooth out those edges, but you can see that there's a little bit of blur around the outside. The Shape tool works completely differently. As opposed to working with a series of pixels or a bitmap image, the Shape tool actually works through creating vector images. And vector images is a completely different way to think about creating color and pattern and images within a digital imaging program. Instead of working with a series of pixels, vectors actually use lines to describe the outside of a shape. The outside of that shape, that line that describes it, is referred to as the stroke. You will see a box here to describe the stroke at the top. The inside of the shape, the color that is in the middle of it, is described as the fill. The beauty of vector images is that they are completely non-destructive in nature. In addition, they can be expanded or contracted without losing any quality. No matter how big you make them, they maintain their quality all the way through. So you can see with this vector circle that I created, it's maintaining a sharper edge than the original circle that I created through my brush tool. The other beauty of them is that they're continuously editable. If I decide that I want to change the interior color of my shape, also known as the fill, all I have to do is go back and click on the layer that my shape lives on. And I should definitely mention at this point that whenever you make a shape, it automatically creates a new layer just for that shape to live on. One of the reasons that they are non-destructive. The other reason is that they're infinitely editable, meaning once I have my layer selected and I have the shape tool selected, I can continue to click in to the fill area here, into this color picker, and continuously just change the color of my shape. No information is being destroyed in this process. I can also add a color to that outline or the stroke of the shape. And you can see that I'm bringing up the color picker just by clicking in these colored boxes. Now you may not see that outline, the colored outline that I just added, because I have a very thin stroke right now, meaning it's a 1 pixel wide line. But if I make that line thicker, you can all of a sudden see that I have that colored stroke. And I can make it thinner and thicker to my heart's content. If I finish making my adjustments, I can move to another layer. I can switch my tools that I'm using, and I can always come back then to that layer, reselecting the shape tool, and continue to edit the color of both the fill and the stroke. You will see here in the upper left-hand corner of both color box pickers that there is a white rectangle with a red slash going through it. That is no color at all, and it will make either an invisible stroke, or if I wish to have a stroke, I can make an invisible fill, creating my shape as simply a ring. For these purposes, I'm going to go ahead and keep both. In addition to determining the thickness of that stroke, I can also determine whether it is a smooth line, a dashed line, or a series of dots. This also can be altered indefinitely as long as you have your shape as its own distinct layer here. Going down the list of shape tools, you can see the rectangle tool will make a rectangle. Though sometimes in both the ellipse or oval tool or the rectangle tool, you may want to use those to create a perfect square or perfect circle. If you wish to do this, you simply hold down Shift, and as you can see, it will fix the ratio of the box so as that it will always maintain even-sided dimensions, or will maintain itself as a square. Polygon tool works much the same way, allowing you to make a polygon of any size or angle that you wish to have. Now, one major difference with the polygon tool here is that you have a window at the options bar that allows you to pick how many sides it has. Of course, a 5-sided polygon is a pentagon. If I chose a 3-sided polygon, I end up with a triangle. Or if I go up to 8 sides, I have an octagon. So you can choose whatever shape you want to create as your polygon. Finally, I have my custom shape tool. The custom shape tool works much the same way. The only difference being you have a menu up here in the options bar that allows you to pick the shape that you are going to make. As you can see right now, I have kind of a flower shape, but simply by clicking up there, I can go through and pick any number of shapes from this menu. In fact, this menu displays only a small fraction of the shapes available. If I click down on this menu and then click on this little gear symbol here on the side, you will see a small list comes up of different categories of shapes. For example, if I wanted to have, let's say, shapes that are nature themed, I can go ahead and change my menu to that, and I come up with a range of leaves and suns and snowflakes and whatnot. Have my clover come up, and just like any other shape, if I choose to change it to maybe a more predictable color for a clover, it's easy enough to do. I can easily change the stroke to black as well. And thin out that outline until it seems appropriate. If you ever wish to change the size of your shape, you simply click on the Move tool here, making sure that Show Transform Controls is clicked on, and that will allow you to make the shape bigger and smaller. You can also warp the shape, so be careful. If you wish to maintain the shape's dimensions and just change the overall size, hold down the Shift key while changing the size of it. Unlike pixel-based images, these vector images can be grown and shrunk repeatedly with no risk of loss to quality whatsoever. This shape tool function can be used for a lot of different ends and can be applicable for a number of means that we'll get to throughout the course of the class. Now, before I move on, I want to show you one last and maybe the most complicated aspect of these shape tools. I'm going to turn off all of my layers except for those. And I'm going to direct your attention over to the Layers panel. By double-clicking into the open area on the layer of the shape that I want to apply an effect to, I bring up this Layer Style box. You'll see on the left-hand side here a whole list of styles. There are so many different options here and so many different options within each style that I can't possibly get into them all. My intent here really is just to introduce them to you. I'll pick a couple of the most common ones to show you, and you can continue to explore at your own pace. If you click on the name of the layer style, you'll see that a list of options appears that is specific to that style. I've chosen drop shadow here, one of the more popular options here in the layer style panel. You can see that through changing the distance, spread, and size of my drop shadow, I can change the appearance of the shadow that has appeared behind the box. By rotating this dial here, I can also change the angle that the shadow is appearing beneath my square. This is a useful tool for making it appear as though your shape is floating off of the surface of your image document. I can go to another one to show you the range of options that these have. Over here in Bevel and Emboss, you'll see that this creates this highlighted and shadowed edge that creates almost a three-dimensional effect to your shape. So you can see that I went from a basic square blue square to something that looks more like a three-dimensional button in just a couple clicks of the mouse. As you can see, you can change how significant the bevel is and the overall look of the shape just by sliding these bars around a little bit. Like I said, there are far more options than I could possibly cover in the span of one of these videos that appear through these layer styles, and I'll leave it up to you to explore. But just know that there are many options in here, and I should warn you that many of these options will override the initial shape and color that you've applied to your device. For example, a pattern overlay will change from whatever color you had selected for your shape to the pattern that you select from this drop-down menu. If I click OK, my layer styles are fixed. And you can see on my layer now, beneath the shape, there is actually a list of the effects that I have applied to it. If you want those to go away, you simply click the eye next to the effects and you can see the original shape. But you can see once again that through a few simple clicks on the layer styles, I can make a radical change in appearance to my initial shape. Now both these layer styles, as well as the custom shapes in the custom shape tool, have many options available online that have been created by companies and individuals alike. You can go ahead and search on the internet for them and download them to your computer and load them into Photoshop so that you can continue to use the almost infinite number of options available to you through this program. I'll leave it up to you to discover those, but I just wanted to make you aware of their existence and show you briefly how to use them. Thank you for watching this video, and best of luck.